Daryl Cronk, age 46, of Raymore, Missouri, passed away on Sunday, December 26th, 2021, in Columbia, Missouri. Daryl was born in West Plains, Missouri, on November 26, 1975, to Mike and Linda Cronk. A graduate of Belton High School, Daryl continued his education, attending the University of Central Missouri and Pittsburgh State University. In life, Daryl was blessed with 3 children, Blake, Brett, and Bailey, whom he made many lasting memories with. To know Daryl was to know his love and passion for baseball. He started his career playing at Belton High School, where he compiled numerous baseball records and was later inducted into the 2014 Athletics Hall of Fame. As a player at Pittsburgh State, he compiled numerous accolades, including NCAA Division II Second-Team All-American 1997 pitcher, NCAA Division II All-Region 97 and 98 First Team, NCAA II All-Region 97 Central Region Pitcher of the Year, and MIAA All-Conference 97 through 99. In addition, he set PSU records for career victories with 27 and innings pitched with 258 2/3, while compiling a 27-12 record with a 3.51 ERA and 48 career appearances. He was inducted into the Pitt State Hall of Fame in 2014. He went on to further his education at UCM, where he was an assistant coach and helped the 2010 Mules baseball team to the Division II World Series. That team was later inducted into the Mules Hall of Fame. In 2011, he became the head coach at Avila University. While at Avila, he has compiled over 250 wins, 2 conference championships, 3 NAIA national tournament appearances, 5 30-plus win seasons, and was a 2-time HAAC Coach of the Year. The 2012 team was later inducted into the Avila Athletics Hall of Fame. About 5 years ago, Daryl met the love of his life, Kristen Spiller, and was also blessed with the love of her 2 daughters, Piper and Lyndon. Daryl's talent did not stop with sports. He was also an incredible musician, playing guitar and singing for various events. Daryl has recently picked up woodworking and was developing quite a knack for it. Daryl was preceded in death by his paternal grandparents, Patrick and Mildred Cronk, and maternal grandparents, Carl and Vita Madison. He is survived by his 3 loving children, Blake, Brett, and Bailey Cronk, parents, Mike and Linda Cronk, love of his life, Kristen Spiller, and her children, Piper and London Spiller, 2 sisters, Sherry Pruitt and Carla MacArthur, and 7 nieces and nephews, Preston, Paige, Portia, Parker, Emily, Elliott, and Duncan. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. Mike asked me to introduce myself. My name is Les Norman. I'm a former Royals outfielder. And interestingly enough, as I was talking with Mike and was coming here this morning, I realized that Daryl lived to be 46 years old, and I've been in baseball for 46 years. I've played on an Olympics team, I played in college, and I made it to the big leagues. And I say that because I've had so many influences in my life and in baseball. One of the greatest was Daryl Cronk. The day we met, I had signed up for a tournament, and my team had never played at Avila before. And we were enamored by y'all's turf, and I was like, oh, turf, that was so cool. You guys remember being in high school, right? I'm like, oh my God, we get to play on turf, how cool is this? Until you hit one on the football field, then you're really cool, right? So we got there for our first game, and the tournament was running late. And so we had walked onto the field, and immediately this umpire gets right in my face. And if you're an umpire, I apologize, but I'm not a big fan. You know, it's not. And if you ask Daryl, he'd say, "Oh man, they're awesome." They'd give you that Daryl wink. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. And the umpire came up to me, and we had just walked on the field. First game, and he said, "Game starts in 7 minutes." So we're just sitting around, and there's no way we're going to be ready in 7 minutes. And I was pleading our case. He said, "Well, now you've wasted 2 minutes, so now we start in 5. And he walked away. So I was not happy. And I went to the dugout and told my kids, and there was this young dude on the mound, tamping the mound. And he had an Avila shirt on. And so I'm like, okay, that's got to be the coach. And I went out there and I said, "Hey, I'm Les Norman, blah, 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 coach." And he said, "Yeah, Daryl Cronk, I'm the coach here at Avila." And I said, "Man, these yahoos are saying we got to be ready in 5 minutes." He said, "Let me tell you something." In that Daryl Cronk, cool as cucumber style, is like, "Well, I'm out here fixing the mound, and if you get a rake and come out here and help me, this game ain't gonna start until I say we're ready, so we'll get a rake." And I got a rake. And the game started 20 minutes later. The next day, we were matched up against his team in that tournament. And I watched him, and I always watched the other coaches. And throughout the game, this dude was calm. I watched the way his kids hustled. I watched the way he talked to his kids. I watched the way he talked to umpires. And by the end of the game, I realized he just faded into the background. He was the head coach of this team, but it wasn't about him. I didn't know him except for that conversation the day before. And he was the only guy I knew that could really talk someone down when he happened to deal with umpires. And that day, just watching him be joyful and coach in peace, he made me want to be a joyful and peaceful coach. He made me want to be a joyful and peaceful man. Because that's what people with passion and integrity do. After that game, I asked him, "Would you mind taking 5 minutes to come talk to my team?" Because I was trying to get across the point where when you play in high school, college coaches are watching. And he had that look like, you want me to come talk to your team? You want me? I'm like, "Yes, you, coach. I want you to come talk to my team." But he didn't give me 5 minutes. He gave our guys 15 to 20 minutes. And in that short time of talking to the kids that I've been coaching since they were 6 years old, for over 10 years, it was like they were his kids. It was an incredible time of genuine loving for people. He had a gentle spirit that commanded an audience. And I knew that this guy was a guy that I needed to be around not just in baseball, but for the rest of my life. Over the next few years that we got to know each other, I just want to share a few things with you of how Daryl Cronk changed my life. Every single time I greeted that dude, he smiled. And you guys know that smile. It was, I used to tease him all the time. I said, dude, it isn't fair. I say dude a lot. Dude, it isn't fair that as I get older, I get balder and uglier, and you look like you just walked out of a movie set. It's not right, man. It's not right. The $1 billion smile, the good looks, and a physique that wasn't fair either, man. It's just unbelievable. And every time he dismissed it. I got kids. I just being around baseball and all that. But what it really meant was that he was a man of discipline and a man of humility. As our friendship grew closer, it wasn't Daryl, it wasn't Coach Cronk, it became DC. We called him DC all the time. We'd call him phone with each other. We talked baseball, faith, God. We talked perseverance, because he had that going on in his life too. I think we all know that. But isn't it amazing how, if you dealt with Daryl Cronk, he always put you at ease. He always made you walk away feeling like you were more confident, like you were a better person for having been in his very presence. And every single time I talked to him, he even did that for me when he sent me a text. Some goofy little thing. I'm like, yeah, that's DC, man. One day he planned on me coming by to watch a practice at Avila. It was freezing, right guys? Freezing. Fall baseball at Avila. Put thermals and a football helmet on and then go do your fungos and all that. So I walk up, I'm early, and I give him, that head nod, that dudes we think we're cool, that head nod like that, yeah. And he did it with a smile on his face, like, what's up? Like, he was glad to see you. Like, man, I'm glad to see you. And he was going about practice, and then he noticed that I was standing up on the hill, freezing. It was freezing cold. He stopped practice, walked up and said, hey, come in the dugout and get out of the wind. And then went back to practice. It was those little things that DC gave to other people. And as I was sitting in the dugout, I noticed something. That if you didn't know his voice, if you couldn't tell DC's voice, and you just looked down and closed your eyes, you would not have been able to tell who was the coach of that team, because he was just like one of the guys. The practice was well-oiled. It was run well, and they were doing what they needed to do, and they were getting better, but he was in it with them. He was in it every step of the way, and I watched how you guys responded to him, and he loved him. He loved it well. And that day, DC taught me leadership. Our team had played many more tournaments over the years at Avila, and when he couldn't be there, I'd say, hey man, you mind if we come hit the cage? I mean, if he was there, he'd come and he'd meet the team, and he'd make sure everything was taken care of. And if not, he'd get his assistant coaches to someone to come unlock the door. He'd say, hey, did you get everything? He would follow up with a text, follow up with a phone call. After the tournament, he'd follow with, hey, how'd you do? Usually it was, well, probably not so good. I'd say that quite a bit. But he said, well, how was the field, man? How were the facilities? How were the umpires? How was everything? DC just loved people, and he genuinely cared about them all the time. And in almost every single conversation, DC talked about his kids. He was so proud of you guys. And I'd ask him, hey man, how you kiddos doing? How's the family? And he'd look down, and he'd smile, and he'd give that, man, I'm so honored to be their dad. He'd say it all the time, I'm just so honored to be their dad. He'd brag about what was going on in their life, he'd brag about baseball, talk about college, all those things. But he was so incredibly in love with his kids, and he taught me how to be both a servant and have love for the family. And if you go back out there and you look, and I want you to take stock if you didn't notice this, but if you look at team pictures, and sometimes family pictures or wedding pictures, Daryl often would stand a little bit back. Yes. Like everybody was crunched in real close. And in team pictures, whether it was college or his high school teams or summer teams or whatever, if you look at some of those pictures, Daryl had one little step back. He smiled the trillion dollar smile that he had, that you knew he was happy to be there, but you could tell in the picture that he took a step back as if to say, this ain't about me. Don't be looking at me. There's the heroes right there. That was how Daryl Cronk lived. And in that, he taught me how to be selfless. On my radio show 3 years ago, I interviewed him and I asked him a final five questions. And to close this, I want to share with you what his answers were. They won't surprise you. I said, who's the person that you most, or the people that you most admire? And before I got the last syllable out of my mouth, he said, my dad. Because he taught me how to always give your best. And then he talked about his sisters, his uncles, his grandfather, being at the farm, working hard. And he said if you lived on that farm, you were working hard. You didn't live on that farm. And all of them were such incredible memories. I said, DC, tell me what you fear. Because we all know that Daryl Cronk was a man's man. You know what that means. Daryl was a man's man. He was a stud in every sense of the word. Gentle, but he was a stud. And he said, well, I kind of hijacked something from someone else, but I live by this. The only thing to fear is a lack of preparation. Guys, you remember that? Yeah. I asked him why he coached in such a calm manner, because he was such a successful competitor over the years. And he said, if I don't coach in a calm manner, they can't play in a calm manner. And it's not, again, it's not about him. I asked him what he might do in the future. What does the future hold for him? You plan on moving on, D1, what do you got going on in the future? And he said, I believe in doing the best where you're at. Not worrying about that other stuff. My brother, DC, was content. And finally, I've asked thousands of the top names in sports, in business, in music, in movies. I asked many of them, thousands, a question at the end of the show, not the physical part, but when you look in the mirror, what do you see? There's been only one person that got it right. Only one person that played it off and put it on everybody else. And he answered it in this way. He said, first, I just want to be a godly influence for my kids. Because it wasn't about him. And then he said, and I think that this would sum up a lot of what we know about DC. If I can be my best self and bring that out in someone else's life, I've done what? How many of us would say that he's done well? I got to be honest with you, that I believe when he passed, he heard the Lord say, well done, good and faithful servant, well done. He gave everything he knew to everyone that he loved, and I recently spoke to one of his former players who's here today. We were talking about DC's life. He said, Coach Cronk was the only one who gave me a shot, who believed in me. He made our relationship personal, and it wasn't just about baseball. He lived and loved so incredibly well, and I believe that God blesses us with people in our lives. If we're willing to look, if we're willing to pay attention, God puts people in our lives that make us become more like Jesus himself. It's me, Daryl Cronk. Who's that man?
Church is peculiar. I'm not old. I'm not incredible. I do a lot of research about every message that I give on Sunday, and in one of my researches, I stumbled on the list, and it wasn't what I was looking for, but it was so good I couldn't pass over. And it said that when there's dew on the ground, every bird changes its song 1 millisecond before the sun comes up, and it causes the flowers to open up and accept the dew. So Daryl took that idea, went home, and wrote this song that his sister is going to sing. I want you to pay close attention to the lyrics.
Early in the morning, the birds sing praise unto you, Lord. My voice will I raise. In the good and in the bad, I still stay the same. I just came to magnify your name. I just came to worship the King, to stand before His presence and sing. Lift up holy hands, let it ring throughout the land. I just came to worship the King. As I bow at your throne, bringing all that I am, surrendering my life unto your perfect will. No matter what may come my way, I will stand and sing how wonderful and mighty is our King. I just came to worship the King, to stand before His presence and sing. Lift up holy hands, let it ring throughout the land. I just came to worship. I just came to worship. I just came to worship the King.
Well, good afternoon. My name is Nicholas Field. I played at Avila in 2011, 2012, so the first team that he coached, we were there, and everything I say is on behalf of all former baseball players, and I just want to say to the family, I am honored to be able to speak, and I don't take that lightly, and I don't take it for granted either. So I'm gonna be quick, short, say a couple stories, yeah. Kiddos, Bailey, Blake, and Brett. You guys are very strong. Your foundation is because of your grandpa, your dad. And just know you guys have a team here that's lifting you up. All the former baseball players, they've communicated it to you guys, and we just want you to know. Anything you guys need, we're here. When 2011, 2012, it was a crazy time for us. We were losing a coach, getting another coach coming in, and over the time of that summer, it was, are we going to transfer? Are we going to stay? What do you want to do? We had kind of our core group of guys, and it was just, what's next, right? We didn't know who this coach was coming in. We really had zero idea what was going on. But for some reason, we all came back. And I have no idea why. I'm from California. Most of the guys are from California, and we're in the middle of Kansas City. It's freezing cold, and yeah, we have no idea why we came back. Right, but God had a story to write, and He wasn't finished with that story. We were just a ragtag group of guys, right? We came in, and we were probably not the most talented. We all had some injuries, and all kind of coming back up, and we were just a crazy group of guys, right? And I wrote this on social media, and he kind of had some introduction meetings to us, and the first thing I went in there And I think we came back after a semester and we had meetings with them, and he brought us each one into the office individually, and the first thing out of his mouth when I walked in there is, we're not rebuilding, I'm winning now. Right? And that was my biggest fear. If anybody plays sports, you always know, new coach coming in, he could not play you, he could get rid of guys, he could do whatever he wants. Right? It's not previous to what happened, and that is all I needed to know. Right? And like I said, we were a crazy group of guys. Right? And we thought we ran the show, and we thought we did, until we looked back 10 years down the road now, and what Coach Cronk was for us was just a constant. Right? Just like Les talked about, he was just a calm, cool, collected guy. He did get pretty mad at us one time because our grades sucked. And he ran us probably for about 2 hours. And he was not nice, but that was legitimately the only time that he was not nice to us. But he was that constant for us. And unfortunately, we didn't truly get to know him, honestly, like you current players are, or some of the future, or the previous former players as well. We just didn't, he was this, I believe was his first head coaching position, so it was very new to him. And I'm sure he was trying to fill it out as well. And like I said, we weren't the easiest group to deal with. We were a bunch of hard-headed, egotistic senior baseball players. But he was the constant. And as we look back, that's what he was for us. And my relationship began to grow with him after I graduated. And that's when I truly got to know Coach Cronk, because he had I couldn't bring him anything, right? I couldn't add stats to his record. I couldn't do anything, but he still took interest in me and my life. One example of that is me and my wife, we actually both lost our jobs at the same time a couple years back. And I don't know, I felt like I needed to go get some, I don't know, every time I got food with him, it was always at Chipotle. But we went to Chipotle and just kind of talking to him, and honestly didn't spill my beans right away. That's not what I was coming to do, right? It was kind of a stressful time in me and my wife's life at that time, and I just knew I just needed that constant voice at that time, right? And through the conversation, it obviously came out of our situation, and he's like, why the heck did you pay for your meal? I would have paid for it, right? And it's just little things like that where it's like, after I left that lunch, I was just at peace. Because he said, God's got you. You'll be all right. If you need anything, I'm there. If you need some food, I got you. Telling me stories about him feeding kids, even because the money Avila, I don't know if they didn't give him enough money or what, but some of the times it was out of his own pocket to feed his kids. Right? That's the stuff that I saw on the back end that I didn't really realize what was happening. One thing that I kept thinking about is seeing all the social media posts and everything flooding about how great Coach Cronk was. And I don't want you guys to hear this the wrong way. He was an amazing man. He had an amazing foundation. But why was he so great? Because he truly, truly let God shine through him. He was just a vessel that was being obedient to use God's words. So one thing that I challenge everybody here is, if you really want to leave Coach Cronk's legacy and continue that legacy, right? The words he used, the words he brought you to show you peace, to show you joy, to show you grace, his selflessness, was just God's words and God's Spirit flowing through it. And if you really, really want to get closer to that, find God. Get close to God. Right? Everything that man had was because of the foundation his parents built, and because God, he was just a willing vessel for God. I didn't really realize it when I was going through college, but the more and more I saw that man live his life, man, he was just so obedient. That smile, you think he wanted to smile 100% of the time? No. I know he went through some stuff. He wasn't always happy. But man, he let God's smile shine through him so much. And you guys saw social media. You guys saw the flood of love that came to his family because of that. That's the reason. And again, I just want to challenge you guys through that, because that spirit that he had is the spirit that everybody here can have. One last thing is, Jill, I love you so much. You were our team mom when we were playing, and it was great. A lot of us didn't have moms there. A lot of us were from California, like I said, and after every game, she was there. And we appreciate that, and that doesn't go unnoticed. Kristen, thank you for allowing us to come to your house. I know that one day, I don't even know why you invited us. I'm not like an official coach there, but they were doing like some barbecue or something there, and just welcomed us into their house, and honestly, a great, great time. Right, just got to truly know Kristen, got to know his girls. I know my wife went to go watch little Biggie, right, perform and get them medals. And so stuff like that we don't take for granted. We love you guys so much. God will bring peace through this. Don't blame God, there's a bigger plan. It's going to be hard, but one thing we can do is kick the devil in the face and say, boy, you messed up. Every day making a difference and intentionally expanding this kingdom daily, because that's all Coach Cronk wanted. Thank you, guys.
Good afternoon. First, let me thank Mike and the family for allowing me to be a part of this great service. It's so fabulous to see all those that love Daryl so much joined here today. So I just want to say to all of you how blessed I feel to be here and share with you today. I'm Gary Burns. I'm the head baseball coach at Rock Christian University. And I only tell you that because we have many common themes today that we shared with Daryl. And as you hear everyone speak today, you know how beloved he was. Daryl and I have known each other for many years, first and foremost as friends, and secondly as colleagues. He and I were brought together in friendship through our love for the game of baseball. However, our friendship grew through our shared passion for faith, and family, and friends. With Daryl, those three aspects of life were always inseparable. Daryl first came to my attention as a gifted baseball player from Belton High School and the Pittsburgh State University, an extremely talented pitcher with an unmatched competitive drive. He went on to many successes at Belton High School and became an All-American baseball player at Pittsburgh State prior to his professional career in the Frontier League. Many of those teammates and coaches have reached out over the last 2 weeks. Many are here today. Their presence is a great tribute to the important role played by Daryl throughout his life, and the role that he played in their lives, and the role that they played in his. I then lost touch with Daryl for a few years as he raised his wonderful young family and started his own business. However, his love for baseball and his desire to coach never failed. He went on to become an assistant coach on the 2010 Central Missouri State National Championship team. At that point, he was hooked. He wanted to find a way to make baseball coaching his life. He then called me and said, "Coach, can I come talk to you about being a part of the Rockhurst University program?" I said, "Sure." And when Daryl came to speak with me, I learned a lot about the man Daryl Cronk that day. Everything he talked about centered around others and how he could help us and how he wanted to help the players. And it didn't take me 5 minutes to see that we had a great gem on our hands, right? He expressed concern to me not to step on the toes of the coaches who were already in the program. He talked about wanting to win. He talked about all the things he wanted to learn, right? And how he wanted to be a part of the program to assist and help. He was a true man of service. That is who Daryl Cronk was. Well, we talked, and I learned much about Daryl and about what he was committed to do and what his goals were. He said he wanted to spend 3 years with me in dedicated service. He had his job with his contract contracting company, his company, and he wanted to learn this game. I laughed and I said, Daryl, it won't be 3 years. You possess all the things that make a great man and a great coach. You're ready now. But he stayed with us for a year, one short year. And when Daryl passed, I thought back and I thought, that's not possible. Daryl was only with us for 1 year. It seemed like he was with us for 5. Right? That's what an impact he had. He looked at me questioningly and he told me that he wanted to be at Rockers to help first be a coach and create opportunities. Hopefully that will be, and I said to him, hopefully you will get that job, that position next year. He said he wasn't sure he was ready for that. I told him that he was. As fate would have it, the next year he became the head coach at Avila University. Man, he loved you guys at Avila University, let me tell you that. Daryl made a tremendous impact on our team and in the program in that short year, so much so that the young men that played for him in that 1 year have reached out to me. Almost every one of them have reached out to me and talked to me about Daryl in the last weeks. That year was a microcosm of Daryl's life. Far too short, but incredibly impactful. Incredible impact that he made on all the young men. Over the last 10 years, Daryl and I have shared so many great conversations and lunches. The subjects have never changed. Family. The great faith that his family, his mom and dad taught him. He was willing to share with those around him. Something we should all take note of. As you take note today, Daryl was never afraid to share and show his faith. He's a true man of faith. He was a tremendous gift to us in sharing his faith with us. He wanted to talk about his friends. He was a man who beamed friendship. The great smile which he wore every day. The energy that he put into everything that he did, putting others before himself. The sincerity of his friendship. You always left spending time with Daryl Cronk feeling better about your day. Daryl was that guy that had such a huge circle of friends. But each one of us felt special to Daryl. His high school friends, his baseball friends, his church friends, and his music friends. I love hearing him tell stories about all of them, and I feel blessed to be counted amongst his friends. His players. He loved his players and he let them know it. That love was returned to him tenfold. I can honestly say, and I say this in 100% sincerity, guys, I can honestly say that in my 40 years of coaching college baseball, I have never known a coach more loved and respected by his team. Daryl Cronk was that man. Today we celebrate a great man, a wonderful father, son, partner, uncle, and friend. Daryl has made and will continue to make a great impact to all of us throughout our lives. I'm blessed to have known Daryl Cronk.
Last night I had a crazy dream, the wish was granted just for me, could be for anything. I didn't ask for money or a mansion in Malibu. I simply wished for one more day with you. One more day, one more time, one more sunset, maybe I'd be satisfied. But then again, I know what it would do. It'd leave me wishing still for one more day with you. First thing I do is pray for time to crawl. I'd unplug the telephone and keep the TV on. I'd hold you every second and say a million I love yous. It's what I do for one more day with you. One more day, one more time, one more sunset, maybe I'd be satisfied. But then again, I know what it would do. It'd leave me wishing still for one more day with you. One more day, one more time, one more sunset, maybe I'd be satisfied. But then again, I know what it would do. It'd leave me wishing still for one more day. It'd leave me wishing still for one more day. It'd leave me wishing still for one more day with you.
My name's Rob Elkins, and just fortunate to call Daryl friend. I've been asked to read this statement written by someone very special to Daryl, Dr. Gary Grimaldi, affectionately referred to as Doc. Doc says Daryl was a gifted and special man. Throughout his 46 years, he had many memorable moments. As I reflect on Daryl's life, I realize I was fortunate to be a part of some of the best moments. And he says, I would like to share my recollection of these special times in his life. I first met Daryl when he came to Pitt State for an individual tryout for our baseball team. Over the years, I was involved in many such tryouts, but none stand out in my mind like this one. He says Daryl threw a bullpen for head coach Steve Beaver and me indoors on the mezzanine at Reed Fieldhouse. During the bullpen, Coach Beaver and I gave each other that look, like, wow, this kid can pitch. Daryl was soft-spoken, unassuming, a little undersized at the time, and smiled a lot. But boy, could this kid pitch. It was a big day for Daryl and a big day for Pitt State baseball. I served as assistant baseball coach at Pitt State from 1994 to 2000. The years 1996 through 1999 were some of the very best in Pitt State baseball history. And Daryl's pitching was a big part of that. His stats and the team's success speak for themselves. I'll just say that on the days when Daryl was our starting pitcher, I felt really good about our chances. It was great coming to the ballpark on those days, and I think our whole team had that same feeling. Another special day in Daryl's life was his first coaching job, which was pitching coach for Pitt State. He says, I was there for that one too as an assistant coach alongside of him. Daryl's coaching style reflected who he really was. Daryl was always encouraging, he was technical, he was soft-spoken, insightful, and it was a real pleasure coaching with him. In 2014, Daryl was inducted into the Pitt State Athletic Hall of Fame, which is a very select group. And if you know Daryl, he's a part of every Hall of Fame. I think he's a part of the Hall of Fame for Hall of Famers. Daryl was so deserving of that honor, and as you might expect, very humble in his acceptance. Another really special moment in his life. In 2012, my son Nate went to Avila on a recruiting visit. I remember reflecting at the time that ironically, Daryl had come to Pitt State on a recruiting visit all those many years ago. And now he was recruiting my son. Daryl seemed so happy and so excited about Avila. I got the impression that this was his dream job. I knew that he would be at Avila for a long, long time and that he would create a really close-knit family of baseball players. He says, I have one more special moment in Daryl's life that I would like to share, and this one is the best of all. Along with being an assistant coach at Pitt State, I was also a physician with a specialty in obstetrics. On July 6, 1999, Daryl's first child, a daughter named Bailey, was born, and it was my honor to deliver that baby girl. He says it was so special for me. After all that Daryl and I had shared on the baseball field, to deliver his baby girl. And I'm pretty sure it was special for him too. It's pretty rare that a baseball player and his coach deliver his firstborn child. I'd say very special for all of us, Daryl, Bailey, and me. And he concludes with, over the years, whenever I saw Daryl, we talked mostly about baseball, but our conversation always started with his kids. And that was the most important to him. So last week I got a call from Mike, and Mike says, Rob, I need a favor. And so the answer to Mike is, if he says you need a favor, you say yes. And he says, but you don't know what I'm going to ask. And I said, it doesn't matter. So he asked me to read this, and then it just invited me to give my remarks. And I just, the theme is just so crazy how it's a consistent theme. So in Mark 12, Jesus strips away any laws and rules that Christians believed they had to follow and left us with two simple commandments. The first, he said, thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, with all thy mind, and with all thy strength. And the second, namely this, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. And I don't know about you guys, but when I think of the life of Daryl Cronk, I believe Daryl lived out Mark 12, 29 through 31, just as I had read. So I too have a call for us. My call for us is, how can we be more like Daryl? How can we better love Jesus? I think first, it's acknowledging Jesus as our Lord and Savior. And then second, how can we serve as a light to a dark and lost world? And then the real question is, how can we better love each other? I love you guys.
Well, I feel like I'm batting ninth, and the bases have just been cleared off. Mike, thanks so much for asking me to speak. I'm Steve Bieber. I was a baseball coach at Pitt State for 22 years, and some of those wonderful years were spent with Daryl Cronk. I don't know if Kevin Murphy's here or not. Is Murph here? Murph was one of Daryl's best friends from high school, and I wanted to thank Murph and for all the Pitt State people and that he introduced me to Daryl Cronk one day. I could go stand on the exact spot in Central Missouri where Daryl came to see me. He was one of a kind, and as we all know, he was just so much fun to be around. I've got these notes,
pretty much everything on these notes has been covered. But I'll do my part anyway. So when I think about how Daryl would want us to remember him, August 3rd of 2019, one of Daryl's teammates had passed away, Ryan Berry, and Josh Reeves and his wife Jennifer, and Daryl and Kristen, and my wife John and I went to Kirkfield to Ryan Berry's funeral. What I remember the most is how many fun stories Daryl told about Ryan. The good times. The good times, not only on the baseball field, but after class, in the evenings, whatever. And I think Daryl would want us to remember him exactly that same way. Daryl was a gorilla. And as I said, thanks. I'm glad I didn't mess up the recruiting, and I'm glad I took him away from Gary Burns at Hawkers. And Brad Hill was head coach of Central Missouri, and he told me the same thing. How did I let Daryl Cronk get away from me? But I think Murph always wanted him to come to Pitt just because Daryl was his best friend and he wanted to be close to him. And that was okay too. You know, everybody's talked about how wonderful Daryl was, how he was a great coach, how he was so much fun to be around. All those things are true. Nobody's telling stories. Now I want to tell you about Daryl, the baseball player. Here's the way I always look at it. There's guys playing baseball and there's baseball players. Daryl was a baseball player. They're not the same thing. I never, freshman, as Doc put it in our tryout, obvious that Daryl was a great pitcher. But I never let those freshmen come in thinking they just had that spot. They had to earn that starting spot. So Daryl went to the bullpen just like the rest of the freshmen. And Daryl earned that starting spot before the freshman year was over. It wasn't hard to see he was going to be that ace of the staff. So his sophomore year, Daryl had a great year. He's ace of the staff, All-American pitcher. And junior, senior year, ace of the staff. Those 3 years, as Doc mentioned in his little email, that those 3 years, 97, 98, 99, Pitt State was in the NCAA tournament those years, and Daryl was a major reason why. I think Keith Matlock is here, and he was another pitcher on that staff that was a great pitcher. Pitching qualities. Daryl was tough. This guy, he wasn't the guy that I gave the ball to, and when he crossed the line, it wasn't that guy. It wasn't that guy. Daryl pitched inside. You don't understand. If you were on his plate, he owned that plate. He did not mind hitting people. He wasn't a headhunter, didn't go after him, but if you were on the plate, he was going inside. If he happened to hit you, he just happened to hit you. The other thing was, Daryl told me this, and I've told this to players, I've told it to my grandsons, who both pitched, but Daryl always told me, the first thing he had to learn when he got into college baseball was, you're gonna get hit. You're gonna get hit. I don't know if he told you guys that, but it was, deal with it. Go right on, get after the next guy, and that's what Daryl did. He didn't have the lowest batting average against him because he was going to throw strikes, he was going to get in the zone, but he didn't walk people, he didn't give them runs, and he was tough. You know, we talked about how consistent he was as a coach, as a player. When I gave the ball to Daryl and sent him out to the mound, I knew what I was going to get from Daryl. He was the same guy. He didn't have those days where he was horrible, couldn't find a play, bad attitude, never showed any emotion on the mound. You couldn't tell if he was winning or losing. but you knew he was gonna hook it up and play hard. I'm in the wrong generation for social media. Just saying, I'm not a big social media person, but I did read a lot of comments from everybody, former teammates, players, coaches, friends, high school, family, everybody, glowing how Daryl was that guy, and he was all of that. Josh Williams, who went with Daryl and Kristen to Ron Berry's funeral, he reached out to me when Daryl was sick and in the hospital, and he said, I always regretted not telling Daryl how much he meant to me, how much I respected him, and that he could do no wrong in Josh's eyes. And I'm sure Daryl's teammates throughout college would have all said the same thing about him. He was just a steady rock for all of us. Well, Daryl wanted to be a coach a bit. He wanted to be an assistant coach after he finished his playing days. He wanted to finish up his degree and coach. I always had definite rules that I would use to decide whether a player could be one of my assistants after his playing days were over. One, was he respected by his team? Two, did he work hard? Three, was he a good leader and teacher? And Daryl checked every one of those boxes. So Daryl became an assistant coach, and he was so good with players. As Doc mentioned, when he was an assistant coach, he stood out very well with the pitchers down there in the pen and gave them a lot of insight on how to be successful. So while after Daryl came back to Kansas City, finished his degree, and as he said, he had a business and he had a family. So Daryl was wanting to get into college coaching. So DC called me and you know, he said, Coach, I'd love to come down and be your pitching coach. And I said, Daryl, we'd love to have you. But Daryl said, it's just too far from my family. It's just too far from home. It's just not enough money. And so I think what he was actually doing was asking me if it was okay to go coach at Rockhurst or Central Missouri. He wanted my blessing to go somewhere. And I said, Daryl, you gotta do what you gotta do. So anyhow, I was talking to Tommy Myers. And Tommy was a great player for me, and he was one of Daryl's teammates. But Tommy was the head coach at Central Missouri. So Daryl had called Tommy and wanted to talk to him about being a college coach and being a Tommy's pitching coach. And Tommy said, Daryl, why do you want to be a college coach? You know, it is not easy to get a college coaching job. There's just not that many paying jobs out there, and it's hard to get them, as those who have tried know. And as all of the coaches know, you don't get rich coaching. So you do it for other reasons. Here was Daryl's comments to Tommy on why he wanted to coach. I want to coach because I want to impact young college players' lives at an important part in their, as an important time in their life. I want to make an impact on their life. And Daryl has certainly done that with everybody. You know, one thing we can all say in this room, Daryl was our friend. Daryl was our friend. I mean, we're not here because of some other reason. Daryl was our friend, and he wanted to make an impact on college players' lives. So, as I close, I would just like to say that if we want to make Daryl proud of us, we need to make a positive impact on young people's lives. Why not smile? Why not say something kind to somebody? If you've got a bad thought, put a sock in it. Say something kind to somebody and be a good friend to people. And I'm sure Joyce would say, don't let those positive things that you could say to somebody go unsaid. So it's been an honor to speak. It's been an honor to be part of Daryl's life. And I just want to thank the family and everybody around for helping me to have Daryl be a gorilla and all those good years we had at Pitt State. So thank you very much.
I do have notes. Got an eye that I can't hardly see out of it. So I hope I don't get them messed up. I'm not going to preach a message today. Daryl's been preaching his own funeral for 46 years. And you're doing the same thing. I just want to share some comments about Daryl's life that you don't know anything about. But first, I want to thank the president of the college. He's here today. I tried to figure out how to pronounce his name, but I never did figure it out. But I want to tell you, thank you for hiring my son. Because Avila with his family. Thank you all for the great outpouring of love that you've been to Linda and I and his sisters. I started out on the phone saying thank you for your prayers and concerns, and I shortened it up to thanks. And I shortened that up to THX. And Linda said, you haven't replied. And I said, there's 25 more that I haven't replied to. So it just kept coming in from all over the country. And I just want to tell you, thank you for your outpouring of love. Noah's dad and mom is here from Florida. I'm so humbled that you can come. Players from California. It's just amazing. He loved you all. I never heard him ever say, I've got this red hot player and this guy, he's okay. He both played with his family. And he loved you all. My comments is not in chronological order. They just, I wrote down as they come to me. But I started off, when Daryl was 2 weeks old, we went up in front of our church, in front of our pastor, we called him, and we dedicated him to the Lord. And in essence, me and his mother was saying, we'll never stand in his way of what God's plan is for his life. Now, as a pastor, I pastored small churches, and I've always worked in the trucking industry to support my family. And while we were dedicating him to the Lord and saying, Lord, we'll never stand in his way, I knew he'd be a preacher or a truck driver. but from a young boy, Daryl met him right with the game of baseball. We lived in Salem, Missouri. When he was small, and there was a little church there by us, and had a little parking lot. He'd grab 2 or 3 sandwiches and a water jug. He'd go up that parking lot and meet some other boys up there and play ball all day long. When he played t-ball, some of the boys would hit the ball and run to third. That would just infuriate him. Ain't no better than that. Or some boys would sit down out in the field and dig a hole with a stick, and he said, Dad, I want another team on. 1984, we moved to Kansas City. I pastored Faith Tabernacle Church there in Martin City. And Daryl was so excited. He said, now I get to play the boys. They want to play ball. He ended up, he got to play at 3 and 2 a lot of games. They're off of 95th Street. 1988, I bought my own truck. Now, let me back up a little bit. 1988, we bought a double-wide mobile home and put it in South Fork. The South Fork was just opening up. It was about the 3rd or 4th trailer they put in there. And so the yards were small. And Daryl would mow a yard. And he'd, first of all, my mother-in-law, father-in-law would butcher, and they'd give us half to meat and give my brother-in-law, his family, the other half. So Glenn had all the steaks in the fridge, and so he'd just come put a steak on the grill, run mow a yard, and come back, turn it over, and mow another one, and come back. Now, he didn't fix no mashed potatoes or green beans, he just ate the steak. Well, we had some guests over, and Linda was going to fix steak that night. She said, where's my steak? So I knew, but I just played dumb. Which is pretty easy for me to do. But anyway, I came home one day, and the grill was gone. I knew the steaks were gone. I opened the grill, and there was a big old roast in there. I said, what's with this? And he said, oh, I just ran out of that other meat. Anyway, actually, it's about the best roast I ever ate. Daryl had gone to our Christian school that we had started, and due to a move and several things, we closed the school up after 17 years. But so I enrolled Daryl in Belton High School as a sophomore. Daryl was always sensitive to anybody who got picked on. And we had bought Daryl a 1967 Chevrolet pickup. It had pretty well been restored. And his birthday was November the 26th. From November 26th to the end of school, we burnt 1 tank of gas. Now, that changed, didn't it? Over time. Anyway, the boys would get out and gather around his pickup, and one day he said, "Dad, it's not a few bucks." I said, "Yeah, what do you want?" He said, "Well, there's this boy in my class that they picked on because he's small. And I'll wait till all the boys get around my pickup and ooh and all about that." He says, "I want to take this boy out for ice cream after school." That was his heart. Since I was familiar with the trucking industry in 1993, I bought a white Freightliner truck with put Daryl's name on it to just keep his attention, not that he was a bad kid, but I put Michael and Daryl Cronk on the door because DOT required markings. A couple of years later, I bought a Peterbilt, and I wanted him to drive it. So we got in the truck and we started down 71 highway. We got about 2 miles and flipped on the flashers and pulled over. I said, "What's wrong?" He said, "Dad, let's get something straight. I ain't never gonna be a truck driver." I said, "That's okay, son. Follow your dreams." My mind went back to when he was 2 weeks old. And we stood there at church and we committed him to the Lord. We said, whatever God has for him will never stand in his way. I tried to a little bit. And the Lord said, "I ain't never going to be a truck driver." So he followed his dreams. And I thank the Lord for you coaches that he put in his life. And he loved the game. And Avila was just his family. Not only was his team, but he loved the whole school tremendously. I will say this, we're not Catholics, nothing against Catholics, but since that's a Catholic college, whoever he talked to when he first went over there just rolled out the red carpet to him and said, "Your dad wants to come over and speak, it's fine." And it's never been a problem with Daryl. Daryl loved Avila University. Loved all of the staff as well. Daryl did some contract work with Kansas Gas and Missouri Gas. And one day on his lunch hour, he called me and said, "Dad, have you ever read Ephesians chapter 2? And he named the verses. And of course, I had many times, but I didn't tell him. I said, "What's it say?" He told me what it said, and I don't even remember what the point was at the now, but he began to tell me what he got out of that. And I said, "Son, why don't you share that some Sunday?" He said, "Okay, I will." So Sunday came for that Sunday, and he got up to speak. He had one piece of paper. He held it up. He said, "Now Dad flies by the seat of his pants, and he has a lot of rabbit trails, but he said these notes don't have any rabbit trails in it. My message will be short." On another occasion, he called me and he said, "Oh, I got a revelation today, Dad. I'm reading the Bible." And I said, "What is it?" He said, "You know, the Bible says the Lord gives and the Lord takes away." And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Here's my revelation. The Lord gives salvation and forgiveness and takes away sin." I thought that was a pretty good revelation. 1998 or 1999, somewhere along in there, Ozzie Smith called in. He was a former player with the Cardinals in St. Louis. Ozzie putting together an independent team and asked Daryl to play. At this juncture in my life, I'd sold my trucks and I went to driving truck for Walmart. Walmart had a policy that if our kids were playing sports and it was close to our where we were at, we could go by and listen to the game, go by and enjoy the game. particular day, Daryl was pitching over in, Avila. And I was coming out of St. Louis with the Walmart truck, and I was listening to the radio. They were calling him out to pitch, and I was trying to get there faster and faster. Just telling his stats as he was coming out to the game, pitch. And I'm listening, and I'm not quite there, like about 5 or 10 miles yet. But I was crying like a girl. I was so proud. He finally got to do something he really, really liked. It wasn't truck driving. Several years ago, Daryl hit a little bump in the road of his journey of life. He sat at our kitchen table and cried like a girl. And we just consoled him the best we could. We put our arms on his shoulder and we prayed for him. And he said, "Dad, I just want to keep the church." And I'm sure Daryl made a lot of mistakes in his life, probably that we don't know about, but he said, "I want to keep the church." And during that time, I was starting my day about 4 o'clock in the morning. And he'd go down to church. He said, "I'm just walking and praying." He said, "Sometimes I kneel." He'd go down about 5:30. Between 5:30 and 7, I'd get this text. It'd say, "Dad, I'm going to be better, not bitter." Of course, I couldn't hardly see the road to drive either. And on Fridays I was off, so I could pray with him on Friday. Now we come to this juncture in Daryl's life. Seemed like everybody prayed, yet Daryl passed. I received so many heartwarming messages and reports. I can't hardly count them all. But one particular note I got was from Dr. Terry Van Ort in Ankeny, Iowa, doctor friend of ours. He knows Daryl very well. He said, the seeds that Daryl has sown will grow and produce a harvest, because those seeds will never die, they're eternal. I'm reminded of a quote that the wife of Sam Walton, who started Walmart, she said this: "It's not what you gather that makes you great, it's what you scatter." And truly, Daryl did a lot of scattering. All you boys, a lot of individuals. Remember when Noah, during his time of death, Daryl got with me and he cried and he shook hands and hugged. And every boy meant a lot to him. Parker, my grandson, handed me a note that I had remembered from Dr. Miles Monroe. Miles Monroe is in the Bahama government, but he's also a powerful preacher. And he said this: don't make dying old your mission. Make dying empty your mission. Methuselah lived in the Bible 969 years, but that's about all you know. Jesus lived only 33 years and he turned the world upside down. So Daryl emptied himself about every day into somebody or lots of somebodies. One thing that helped me through this tragedy, seemed like a tragedy, was the words of an old song that says many things about tomorrow. I don't seem to understand, but I know who holds tomorrow, and I know who holds my hand. But better than that, I had a dream last Sunday night. I saw Daryl walking up this grassy hill, and he's long-legged, so he way outwalked me. He walked pretty fast. He's walking up this hill, and he had that little helmet cap on that he wears at those games. He had a bat over his shoulder, and there must have been at least 100 boys behind him. And I saw a few ball gloves on their hand, in their hand. And he didn't turn around like this and say, "Dad." He went like this. He said, "These boys is to some of the boys who were aborted and never got to have a live birth. Listen, I couldn't have thought that up. That just ministered to me. He never broke stride. He was just stepping it off. And those boys sat in prayer. And all those boys looked like they were about 20 years old. And for you that ever have listened or anybody's had out-of-body experiences, they said babies are teenagers and old people are younger. And I did have a vision of my parents. And they were like in their 30s in my vision. And they were, that was 86 like that. But anyway, in closing, I'd be remiss to not mention one special person, Kristen Spittle. She was the love of Daryl's life. She sat and held Daryl's hand at the Belton Hospital. He's the next room over from me. They transported him to Columbia. And there she sat day after day, many nights. She held his hand. While me and Linda was home and I was on oxygen, and Linda's nursing a blood clot in her leg. Kristen, you did what we couldn't do. It hurt us, but we couldn't go. So I just want to say thank you, sweetheart. At this time, AJ, my nephew, is going to sing a song, especially Kristen.
I hope you're on it. There's a train moving fast down the tracks. I hope you caught it. 'Cause I swear out there ain't where you wanna be. Catch your pride, catch your cat. Don't you know it's you bad? But baby, run to me. So baby, run, cut a path across the blue sky. Straight in a straight line, you can't get here fast enough. Find a truck and fire it up. Lean on the gas and on the clutch. Leave Dallas in the dust, 'cause I need you in a rush. So baby, run. If you ain't got a suitcase, get a box with no brown paper sack. Pack it light, pack it heavy. Take a truck, take a Chevy, but baby, just come back. There's a shortcut to a highway out of town. Go on and take it. With that speed, maybe slow, you're down. You wanna break it. Baby, run. Straight in a straight line, you can't get here fast enough. Find a truck and fire it up. Lean on the gas and off the clutch. Leave Dallas in the dust. So baby, run.
show any disrespect to anyone. We thank you for coming. Our hearts are overwhelmed. Cemetery across town, while we're there, you're still coming out of the parking lot here, and it's cold. So I talked to the funeral director, and we're going to limit it to the family and to the ball players. Okay, so I thank you for coming. Father, we thank you today for these people who are outpouring of love. Our son. Thank you, Father, that we're so loved by all of these folks who's come from California and Florida, around the country. We're so grateful, and our hearts are so warmed by it. Lord, give us strength, especially the family. We'll have strength through this time of burial. And I know, Lord, we don't need the ticket till we get on the train. When we need strength, you come through for us. We thank you, Lord, for the strength of the Holy Spirit that will help us in today, this afternoon, and the hours to come, and days and weeks ahead. In Jesus' name, amen.